So here's another entry in the movies I took several decades to get around to seeing that everybody else has already seen category. From 1986, Francis Ford Coppola's Peggy Sue Got Married. Now, I was kind of surprised watching this when Coppola's name came up. I totally forgot he directed this movie. You always think of Coppola as these really heavy, serious films, and Jack. But Peggy Sue Got Married, very popular mainstream Hollywood film that's not 3.5 hours long and involves helicopters and napalm. Or, you know, toll booth misfortune. This is a film that stars Kathleen Turner as a woman who's looking at middle age, maybe at a distance, but she's looking at middle age. She and her husband are separated. She's going to a high school reunion, kind of dreading it, and slips, cracks her head, wakes up in bed in the 1950s, early 60s, and she's a teenager again. And she's not sure if it's a dream, if she's dead, if it's time travel, or what it is. And she just basically gets a chance to relive, you know, a little bit of time her senior year, I believe, in high school again, and try to maybe right some wrongs while she's there. This came out the year after Back to the Future, which vaguely similar in some ways, as far as going back to a simpler time and trying to enact change on the present that you're not too thrilled with. And very much a comedy, but very much dramatic at times too. This really plays to anybody who's past a certain age, I think, would love the chance to go back in time and maybe talk to some people one more time who aren't around anymore, and maybe say some things you wished you could have back then with the knowledge that you have now, or just inhabit the body that you, that sounds crude, inhabit the body that you had then with the brain that you have now. You know, if I knew then what I know now. So Peggy Sue Got Married very much plays on that. It plays a little bit of the, you know, somebody from the future knowing things everybody else doesn't card for humor a few times. And the cast is pretty outstanding. You have Kathleen Turner in the lead as Peggy Sue. You have Joan Allen as one of her friends. You have, totally forgetting now because it was weeks ago that I watched this. You have...
Jim Carrey.
Oh yes, you have Jim Carrey in this movie. I had forgotten, I had no idea Jim Carrey was in this movie. I mean, I knew who Jim Carrey was in '86. He had been on Duck Factory, and Once Bitten was right around this time. And, you know, he went on to much, much bigger fame not too long after this, but it was wild seeing him in a silly but occasionally semi-dramatic role. And you also see these people, you know, aged, which is interesting because in the aged people that you see at the beginning of the film in 1986, it's all that, you know, a little bit of padding, a little bit of gray shoe polish in the hair kind of thing. Not the age makeup that would come to really do serious damage to films a bit later in the decade, where people are clearly wearing a pound of rubber. So it gets back to that pre-Beatles era, that squeaky clean, happy America, pre-Beatles era, cool cars, nice clothes, all that. I mean, it peels back the fact that it wasn't all rosy back then, but it also has that nice look to it. And then you have Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage, one of the earliest films people remember him for, or first discovered him in, he plays Peggy Sue's kind of deadbeat husband in the beginning of the film, and the incredibly earnest, a little dim, maybe a lot dim, wannabe singer boyfriend in the film. And it's her going back and seeing, you know, what it was like and what sparked their romance originally, and her sort of rediscovering in him the things that made them such a couple and made them want to get married as kids, and with the knowledge of where it was going to end up. Now, Nicolas Cage is an icon. He is a cinema legend. He is a movie star. More and more I watch his performances and I think, what are you doing? Why is he doing that? Why is he talking that way? And that is very much present in Peggy Sue Got Married. Part of it's because he's younger, but his voice is this weird, like he took a hit of helium before he talks, and he acts really strangely and goofy throughout the film. And he just takes me out of the movie. And more and more I'm watching Nicolas Cage in things. I think he had a sweet spot before he went like nuts all the time in movies and always was bugging out his eyes and screaming. And then he had movies like Vampire's Kiss, which I just thought was awful. And in Peggy Sue Got Married, he's just weird. And he really takes me out of the movie, unfortunately. I feel like if a better or different actor had been in that role, I would have liked this movie more. I thought it was really good, and it spoke to me as a theoretical adult in many ways, more than it would have had I seen this as a 12-year-old back in 1986. The music is great. It's very funny. It's very dramatic. It does a weird thing toward the end that I didn't really care for, where it kind of says it kind of wants to dip into sci-fi a little bit, which was a little weird. But overall, it's a very, very fine film that I was glad that I finally saw. I will say this: if you own Peggy Sue Got Married,